Hello, greetings once again. Thanks so much for being here today. I really appreciate all of you who are so faithfully watching these videos. Thank you very much. Well, today we're going to start the book of Hebrews. I'm actually not going to read any of the text today, but just talk about the background story for the book of Hebrews, who it was written to and its purpose and who the author is, things like that. So if you want to skip those and get right into the text, number 2 in the series next week is where we start the text. So we don't know who wrote the book of Hebrews. For a long time, people thought it was Paul. They thought that for 2 basic reasons. One, the text talks about a lot of the same things that Paul talked about. The superiority over faith in Christ over the Jewish law of Moses, and how that cannot save you, but Jesus does. And also, the mention of Timothy in this letter. Near the end, there's a closing, greetings to some people and travel plans and things like that. And Timothy is mentioned. And Timothy was a protege of Paul. And Paul actually wrote some letters to Timothy, which are included in the New Testament. So when people saw that name and knew that he was an associate of Paul, they thought, well, Paul must have written this letter. On the other side, the things that make us think that Paul probably did not write this letter are the vocabulary and the style of writing, which are much different in the original Greek than that was used by Paul. And the second thing is that Paul never mentions his name. And in all of his other writings, even people who were writing in the name of Paul always declare that he is the author and this is his writing. So, again, it may have been written by a follower of Paul's, an associate of his, or just a pastor who was teaching to his congregation, and it was put down in writing, then shared with other churches, and eventually made it into the canon of the New Testament. And perhaps it was put into the canon because of the mention of Timothy, and maybe it was written by Paul, but it was definitely an important letter. It isn't actually a letter. The text itself says it's an exhortation. We might call it a sermon or a homily. And the ending, it ends like a letter. It does not begin like a Greek letter. That ending may have been added on. It may have been added on by the original author or by someone else when they decided to send it out to other churches. So, who was this exhortation given to? It says Hebrews. Was it something for the Jews? No, absolutely not. This is a message for a Christian congregation. Most Christian congregations are made up of both Jewish and Gentile converts. Traditionally, it was believed that this congregation was primarily Jewish converts, and that when persecution was coming at the church, at the believers, you can see that there's some pressure being put on them, that going back to the old faith might have been attractive, and that's the purpose of the letter. Fewer, but a few scholars believe that it is a Gentile convert congregation made up of mostly people that were from no religion or the pagan Roman religions. And the reason for believing that is twofold. One, there's persecution, and the persecution would be new religions. It was frowned upon to believe in some newfangled faith or philosophy. Those weren't trusted. It was only the ancient religions that could prove trustworthy. And so, since Christianity was new, it was worshiping a person who had just recently been crucified, a so-called Messiah, that they would be persecuted before the Jews. And since there are similarities, certainly between the two religions, that people might be finding Judaism attractive. And this is to tell them, no, stick with Christianity. And again, it's comparing the two religions and finding the beliefs of Christianity far superior to those of the Jewish faith. Either way, whether it was Jews or Gentiles in the church, the purpose is the same. It's a comparison of the two religions and an exhortation to stand firm in your Christian faith and not to leave there and go off into another faith, even one as attractive to you as Judaism might be. So the other reason for thinking that possibly it was a Gentile congregation is the fact that as you go through the reading, so many of the Jewish beliefs are explained in detail. And scholars think that that would have been unnecessary if these were Jewish converts. They would have known these things from their previous religion their whole life up until their conversion, and they wouldn't need all this detailed explanation of things that just a mention of the high priest or the Day of Atonement, and they would know about them. So they'd know about some of the basics like baptisms and things that the author mentions that they had to learn. And so probably it indicated that it was more of somebody coming from a totally different kind of background and was now thinking of leaving. Either way, that's the purpose. Stick with the faith. Let's see. So that's who wrote it and who it was written to and its purpose. And that's pretty much what I want to say to get us started. I think there are two books in the New Testament that are absolutely superior in sharing with us the faith of Christianity as it had developed to the end of the first century. And those two are Hebrews and the Gospel of John, which was written in the late 90s, close to the turn of the century. This church, this religion had had 70 years since the time of Jesus and about 50 years since the writings of Paul to get this religion and its doctrines organized and clear. Of course, it's going to take 300 more years before they actually do that because there are so many questions about the faith. But this is a perfect picture of where the doctrines and the teachings are at this time. So if you're a history person, if you like to study history, I may have mentioned before that at the time of the first century, the first few centuries, even today, let's face it, there are all different kinds of Christianity, but those early years are quite interesting. So if you're a history person, I'm going to leave the link in the description box to my history channel for you, and you can check out the playlists and see some of these groups that were there just after the time of Jesus, at the beginnings of Christianity, and all of the different things they believed, and trace the history of the religion and other religions in the area right up to the present day, and taking a look at some of the different kinds of faith that we have today. So check that out if you're interested in history. Next week, we're going to start with Hebrews chapter 1, verse 1, and go through the text. This will be more like a study together. It won't be like me sermonizing you. So if you like that approach, I hope you'll join with me. As always, I'm anxious for you to leave your comments and questions and to get a discussion going in the in the comment section. So that's it for today. I hope to see you next week. Have a great week. I'll see you then. Bye for now.